This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, with you as always. Thank you for being here. As the intro states, if you're new to the show, the podcast, I ask the same 5 questions of every guest, and the idea is to get real-life stories and experiences, totally unedited, for what the men and women in law enforcement have to deal with on a daily basis, with the idea that we're going to get a better appreciation for the profession. The questions are the first hot call you responded to, the strangest and bizarre thing you dealt with, most intense or terrifying call, positive or heartwarming situation, and advice to new officers. So that's kind of how the show goes. I really appreciate everybody coming back, all the rating and reviewing that's going on, and the Patreon people are supporting the show through Patreon. Truly, truly appreciate that. I do have coming up an exciting sponsorship, which I will be announcing soon. It's with a company that really aligns with the show, so stand by for that. Really, really pumped. And today's guest, guys, really, really excited to have him. He did 10 years as a cop in New Jersey, then 24 years for Las Vegas Police Department. He was a speaker this year at the RNC, which is incredible. We'll definitely ask him about that. He's the founder of the Wounded Blue. It's a national organization that supports injured and disabled law enforcement officers. And he's also the host of his own podcast, A Cop's Life. So without further ado, let me bring on the great Randy Sutton. Randy! Hey, man.
Hola.
Thank you for coming here, brother. That was, we chatted before the podcast, and you had mentioned the RNC thing, and you got referred to me by a few different guests that came on. You got to have Randy on. And I went back and watched the video, and I was like, oh, wait, I know Randy because I've seen this video. I watched it at the RNC, man. That's incredible, bro, and great speech. How did that come about? How did you get invited to do that?
Out of the blue, man. I had no idea. A week before the RNC, I got a phone call. And it was a woman. She said, I'm so-and-so with the RNC. And I thought they were going to hit me up for money again, you know.
Yeah.
And she said, your name has been submitted as a speaker on law enforcement at the Republican Natinoal Convention. Are you interested? And I was like, it has? I didn't submit my name. I said, who submitted my name? And she gave me a name, and I said, I don't even know who that person is. She said, well, are you interested? And I said, yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
So she said, okay, would you be available to do a Zoom interview? And so I did this Zoom interview with several people, and they said, you're our choice. And I was flabbergasted. And they said, okay, we're going to put you in touch with your speechwriter. And I said, I don't need a speechwriter.
Yeah.
I write my own speeches. And she said, everybody's got to have a speechwriter. So she referred me to this guy, speechwriter, and he said, I'll write your speech for you. And I said, no, I'll write my own speech. He said, okay, well, here's the parameters. You have 300 words.
Oh, wow.
I said, 300 words? I said, it's harder to write a 300-word speech than a 3,000-word speech, you know?
Yeah.
And he said, that's the parameters. You got 300 words. So I wrote my speech, 300 words on the dot, submitted it to him. He made some alterations. I made some alterations to his alterations. And then it had to go up the chain of command.
Yeah.
So went up the chain of command, and they actually added 47 words.
Breaking their own rules.
So I had 347 words to change my life. And that's how it happened. And I mean, I got to tell you, I've been a speaker for many, many years. I've done TV, I've done movies. I have never had an experience like that, Steve. It was incredible.
Yeah.
It was electrifying. They sent me out to the RNC. I had a day to practice, and they were locked in, man.
Yeah.
They had it. They were really, really organized. But
it was like a convention I've not seen them do in a long time.
They had it down. They had it down. They were really organized. But also, that city was like an armed camp. There were thousands of police officers from all over the country. I got to see some guys that I used to my department, my old department. It was crazy, man. It was great. And then I don't really get nervous. But this time I'm up in the green room
Oh, I'd be
with
shaking.
with Ron DeSantis and Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is before me. Ron DeSantis is after me. And now I'm starting to get a little nervous.
Yeah.
And when I walked out onto that stage, 10,000 people screaming "Back the Blue,"
Yeah.
and I was no longer nervous, man. It was like lightning entering my body. I felt that energized. It was the most incredible 6 minutes of my life.
Yeah, you did a great job too, and you did not seem nervous at all, which is funny because
I was no longer nervous, not at all, not one tiny little bit.
That's awesome. You probably,
Yeah.
you know what, in hindsight, it's probably having the speechwriter was probably nice just to have somebody like a professional just to look over it, you know, like an editor, just to kind of give it the once over.
Yeah. It was. I didn't object to it. I mean, it was part of doing business. It didn't change much, so
Right.
I was good with it. And then, like I said, they added a few words to it. But this is the funny part. Okay, so I had 2.5 hours to practice. So I go down to the practice room and they have it. He says, "Hey, have you ever used a teleprompter before?" And I said, "Yeah, I've done that." So they had it set up exactly like the stage: teleprompter here, and then in the center.
Yeah.
So he says, "You've got 2.5 hours. We'll stay here as long as we need it." So it was a speechwriter, it was a coach, a vocal coach, and then a transcriber. I mean, they left nothing to chance here, right? So they said, "Okay, we got 2.5 hours. Go ahead and give it a try. Let's see how you are." So I did the speech. They looked at each other and they said, "I think we're done here." And that was it. That was
nice.
It. That was it. But here was the thing. They said, "Whatever you do not deviate one word from this speech." And I said, okay, no worries. So now I'm doing the speech, and you saw it. And I got towards the end, and I had to do this. And I said, before I conclude, there's something I have to do, and that's salute my president. And I gave that salute, man. And Trump stood up and saluted me. I'll never forget that feeling.
Awesome.
And the crowd went wild. And I got hundreds and hundreds of messages from cops from around the country right after that saying, "We felt that you two were saluting us." And that's, man, it doesn't get any better than that.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I love that part at the end. And you know, they probably are, you know, they're so strict and tell you like you can't deviate because they know you're going to, but they're trying to get that to be a little bit less because they know how cops are, you know.
Yeah, but it was a experience of a lifetime, and got me an anonymous donation of $50,000 for my charity.
Wow, for the Wounded Blue.
For the Wounded Blue, yeah.
That's amazing. That's worth the price of admission right there.
Oh, are you kidding me? One of the biggest donations we've ever had. That's
so cool. Yeah, and we're actually, I have it all set up so we can go to that website and stuff later on in the interview. But incredible, man. I don't know. I'm just so happy they picked like an actual copper. You know what I mean? Like somebody who did the job and all that stuff. And
well, as it turned out, the way I got it, this is a weird story. Somebody that's high up in the Trump in the GOP here in Nevada used to be a cop, and I was his training officer.
No kidding.
And he's the one that suggested me.
Wow, that's awesome. You never know how somebody's going to impact your life down the road, you know?
That's it.
That's so cool.
I was his FTO.
That's awesome, Randy. Well, can we go back in the Wayback Machine to young Officer Sutton? You're on the streets for the first time, whether it be, you know, New Jersey or Las Vegas, but the first really hot call that you remember going to, the first call to you at the time gave you an adrenaline dump, you know?
Oh, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was literally my first call riding solo in Princeton. So now keep this in mind. I was the youngest cop in the state of New Jersey at the time. I was 19 when I got hired.
Wow, that is young.
And it was young, man. They had just changed the age of majority from 21 to 18, so you could vote, you could drink, you could be a cop. But one thing you couldn't do, you couldn't buy ammunition. So here I am getting ready to go into the New Jersey State Police Academy, one of the toughest academies in the country, and I had to have my mom go buy my bullets for me. So I did the academy. I come out, and Princeton is a small town. I think we had 30 cops at the time. And so there was no formal field training. They threw you in with a senior officer, and you rode with the senior officer until he said, yeah, you can go on your own.
Yeah, go breaking that boot.
Yeah, right, exactly. So first night by myself, graveyard shift. And now remember, Princeton is where the university is, right? So it's all kinds of institutions of higher learning. So the call came out, man bleeding, assist the ambulance. And it was on the grounds of the Princeton University Graduate School, literally where the rocket scientists are, literally. And so I now there's not a soul on the streets. 2:00 in the morning, Princeton folds up like a tent at about 10. There's not a soul on the street, and I'm going lights and siren, man, because I can, right? So, and I come to a police story stop in front of the residence, screeching my tires and my brakes, and I come to a sliding stop, jump out with my first aid kit because I beat the ambulance there. And there's already a unit there with these two old crusty cops. And one of them had a Scottish brogue. And as I run up the steps with my little first aid kit, he says to me, "Laddie, this is yet an investigation." Yeah. And I walk into this apartment, and there's nothing in this apartment as far as furniture goes except for a picnic table and a bench. And on top of the picnic table, there's a stew pot, and it's full of ice and blood. And there's a butcher knife on the table, and there's blood everywhere. Blood everywhere. And I look, and standing in the corner is this Asian guy wearing a black overcoat. And he's just standing there staring at me. I got my first aid kit, and I'm looking around. I said, "Excuse me, sir," because that's what he called sir to everybody. "Excuse me, sir, are you bleeding?" And he goes, "Yeah." I said, "Where?" And he opened up his overcoat, and what was left of his little penis was dangling by like a little string of flesh, like that. And blood was just pulsating out of him.
Oh.
And he wasn't showing any emotion, any pain, nothing. Now, remembering my first aid skills, I got a compress out, and I said, "Here, apply direct pressure."
Yeah.
I wasn't touching that, right? So the ambulance gets there, package him up, and I'm riding with him in the ambulance because I figure I may need to get a dying declaration from him.
Yeah.
Because this guy's lost so much blood, I figure somebody did this to him, and I need to get the information.
Sure.
So I'm riding with him in the ambulance. I said, "Tell me what happened." And I don't do a really good Asian accent, but I'll try to do my best. And he says, "Officer, I have sex problem. Masturbate too much. Interfere with my studies."
Oh,
the guy had failed the math test that day, and he blamed it on the fact that he was spanking his monkey a little too much. And instead of maybe altering his schedule, he took that baby, put it on the table, and went whack.
Oh my gosh.
And that's when I knew I was going to love being a cop.
That is one of the things I say about the show often is you couldn't make these stories up if you tried. That's totally insane. What a dedicated student, Randy.
I know. Hey, and listen, they sewed it back on.
Really?
I saw him for years later. Years. Princeton's a small town, right? I would see him walking his bicycle up and down the street for years. He literally was a rocket scientist. Scary.
Wow. I would really want to ask him, but of course I wouldn't. I'd really want to ask him, like, does it still work?
Yeah, I never asked him that.
If I were him, I would have told you. I'd be like, "Hey, we're good."
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, that's totally nuts. But hey, some of those people that are like super high achievers like that in academia you've seen them interview before. They're off. They might be really, really good at that, but in every other aspect, they can be a little tweaked.
Yeah.
That's insane, man. What, and the guys that gave you the call, were they aware of what was going on yet, or were they just?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so that was the whole point, just
That was the whole point.
not to deal with it.
That's what the rookie gets, man. The rookie gets that.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Randy, in your career, can you describe a strange or like really bizarre thing you dealt with? Although you just told one, do you have another one?
I got tons of them. I had several books out, including my book, which I named after my podcast, A Cop's Life. And it's all stories from my past that I mean, it's a pretty dark book, actually. There was a lot of heavy stuff I dealt with as a cop.
Yep.
I'd say probably one of the most bizarre would be doing a welfare check. Well, it's hard to put this story into context unless you hear the whole thing. And actually, if we can take this out of your questions out of sequence, I'll answer both of them with two connected stories.
All right. Perfect.
So you talked about life-changing events, and I've had several that led me to the path that I walk today. And one of them is surviving a shooting that I never should have survived. And the story will connect to the bizarre one afterward. So I was a field training officer at the time, and my old partner and I, a guy went through the academy, and then we were partners. Now we're both FTOs. Are coming out of dinner on Saturday night, 9:00. Now that's important information to note. Saturday night, 9:00, and we get a call. It's what we now call an active shooter. This guy was dressed all in black. He is armed with a shoulder holster, a pistol, a sword, throwing stars, and he's shooting at kids at a high school dance.
Damn.
And it's literally about 2 blocks from where we are. And at first, it sounded so bizarre that we looked at each other and go, yeah, come on now. And then we realized that it's a real deal because there were 2 couples on a double date following the suspect. And he realized he was being followed. He shot at them, and the bullet went through the windshield between the heads of the 2 couples, at which point the driver decided he did his civic duty, and off he went.
Yeah.
Now, I'm pulling onto the street. Another unit is getting there first with another FTO and his trainee. They've got their headlights and their spotlights on this individual who is walking directly towards them in the middle of the street. And he's dressed exactly like the report. He's got the gun in his hand. And as I'm pulling behind that police car, I'm expecting they're going to shoot him, or he's going to surrender, or he's going to throw the gun down, or he's going to run, or he's going to shoot himself. So all these scenarios are playing in the seconds that I'm arriving, right? But he does something nobody expects. He nonchalantly walks right towards that police car, puts the gun back in his shoulder holster, and just walks right by the 2 cops who are standing there like this. And then he starts walking, changes his walking path, and he starts walking up an apartment driveway to a group of people. So now I'm out of my car. The air unit has gotten above us, and they're circling. The suspect is walking towards this group of people, and now I have to take action.
Yeah.
And this is literally the moment that I trained for my entire police career. But taking a human life is not just a professional decision. It's a very personal decision. And I wasn't sure of my backdrop because there were people in the way. So I ran up behind him. I've got my gun in my hand. And he heard me, and he turned, and when he turned, I kicked him in the stomach. And when he went down like this, he came up with the gun, and we both were literally toe-to-toe. And we both fired at exactly the same time. And our gun muzzles were just about touching.
Damn.
And I fired 2 rounds, and then the nightmare that we all have actually happened. My gun jammed.
Oh, no.
And I'm going click, click, click. And he's going boom, boom, boom. And we're literally inches away from each other.
Wow.
And I was not wearing my body armor.
Oof.
And I had nowhere to go. He's shooting at me. My gun's not working. I remember the muzzle flashes looking like they were a flamethrower.
Yeah.
And I got nowhere to take cover. And I roll onto my back, and I'm twisting from side to side, trying to get my gun working, and he's trying to shoot me. And he's firing at me, and little pieces of asphalt are hitting me. The rotor wash from the air unit is throwing debris and rocks and sticks, and that's hitting me. The two cops who were there before me, they see me go down, and now they open up on this guy, and their bullets are zinging over my head, and I don't know who to be more afraid of.
Oh, man.
It was surreal.
Yeah.
It was surreal is the only word I can utilize. And my old partner drove in. Sees the air unit, saw the muzzle flash, saw me go down, so what do they radio? Shots fired, officer down. My old partner comes in, sees me down, and decides he's going to run him over with his car, which was a sound tactic. But what happens when you're in the thick of it, right? You get auditory shutdown, you get tunnel vision, and he didn't see this big cement stanchion that was in the way. So he impacted that, and it sounded like an explosion. So it didn't have the desired effect that he wanted, which was to run him over. But the explosion was so loud, it took the suspect's attention away from me long enough to get up and re-engage him. I got my gun, my jam dislodged, and was able to re-engage him. And now he and I are standing there in a toe-to-toe gunfight, like the freaking OK Corral. And I'm just shooting and shooting and shooting. I emptied my mag, did a combat reload, and he ran. And I'm thinking, I'm the world's worst freaking shot, man. And I chased him. My old partner jumped in with me. We chased him. And as we come around the corner of a building, I hear him scream, "Die, motherfucker, die." He's hiding behind a bush. And he and I just emptied our mags, and he rolled out from under the bush. He was dead.
Wow. And
so
he had hit you.
He never touched me.
Really?
Not one injury. And that was a life-changing moment for me. See,
I bet.
That moment literally changed the way I viewed life. And it gave me what I call the journey of why. Why didn't I die that night when I should have?
Yeah.
And I fully believe that I didn't die that night because I hadn't completed whatever mission I was put here to do. And that mission is what I'm doing right now with the Wounded Blue. I believe that I didn't die that night because of this.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. That's incredible. What was it?
So my partner and I never talked about that night for years. Did I freeze up here?
Your audio is still good, so you're good to go. It should catch up.
No, it's weird. I don't know why that happened. I'm trying to see if I can get it working again here for you.
Yeah, it will probably catch up if it had a lag or something, but I can still hear you good.
Okay. All right. So anyway, so we didn't talk about that night for years, and then one night we're in a bar. I know that's a shock, and and we just brought it up, and I said to him, "How about that crazy son of a bitch screaming, 'Die, motherfucker, die'?"
Yeah.
And he didn't respond. And I looked at him, and he was just staring at me. I said, "What are you staring at?" He says, "You really don't know, do you?" And I said, "No, what?" He said, "Randy, he never said a word. That was you."
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah. I
High
didn't know it for
stress.
years. So now I want you to consider something. Suppose that happened today, and I had a body cam on, and I was screaming, "Die, motherfucker, die!" as I pump rounds into this guy. Where would I be right now?
Yeah, you better better pray for a pro LE jury.
You see that this is what people, and we don't do a very good job ourselves in describing this. Combat is combat. Whether you're in a gunfight on the streets as a cop or you're in Kabul, when you're in combat, your life is in danger, and the reaction and things that we do and the things that we say, we're not in total control.
Right.
And so, I thank God that it happened then and not now.
Yeah.
So, but that was life changing for me. Now I'm going to tell you. You asked the bizarre story, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So here's the second part of this. So, there's a big investigation, fatal shooting, homicide comes out. It's an ordeal, man. It's an ordeal. At that time, we had the coroner's inquest, so I was off for several months while they did the investigation, and then the wheels of justice grind slowly. And about 3 months later, finally get back to work. I think it's my first week back, and it's 9 o'clock on a Saturday night,
Yep.
and I'm going to go home sick because I'm going to head into the bar. There was no. So I said, I'll back him up for.
Hey, Randy, can you hear me okay? Because you're all jumbled now.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Hey, let's try to exit the interview and then come back in, see if it fixes it.
Okay, you got it.
All right, just click on the link. Give him a couple seconds here. There we go. That was quick. Oh. There, a couple more seconds. There we go. There we go.
There we
All
go.
right. Sorry about that, brother. Yeah, you were saying about the you were linking the bizarre story into the shooting.
Right. Okay, so I'm back to work. Check the welfare call. There's no, and these calls could go from anything from 30 seconds to being, you never know what you're getting on it. Check the welfare. So we meet with the woman who calls it in, and she tells us we're in an apartment complex, and she says, I think my coworker may have killed himself. And I said, okay, why? And she says, well, yesterday I dropped my car off. That's it over there. And she points to a vehicle. So I dropped my car off because his car was broken down, and he didn't show up for work today. And I've been calling him all day. And yesterday, when I was dropping the car off, I saw that he had a gun, and he's been very depressed over breaking up with his girlfriend. So he didn't show up for work today, and I've been calling him all day, and no answer. And I came here knocking on the door, no answer. It's all dark, and she says, I think he may have killed himself. So reasonable to assume. And I get a key from the apartment manager. And now my partner, the guy I was backing up, this guy was not a ball of fire. And he takes me aside. And he said, Randy, I got a bad feeling about this. Let's just clear this call. I said, you can't just clear the call. Can't just do that. We got to go. I said, we'll use an extra caution. So I turned off all the lights behind me so I wouldn't be silhouetted. I make a phone call into the apartment. No answer. I don't expect there to be. I knock on the door, call his name. Hey, John, come on out. No answer. I don't expect it to be. I expected he's dead on the floor in there.
Yeah.
Open the door, push it open, but I don't go in. And I challenge it again. And then I do a quick peek, right? And a quick peek, for those of you that don't know, is so you don't make yourself a target. You have your weapon, and you just do a quick. Your eye goes into the interior, so you can gather any intelligence before you make an entry.
Right.
So I did the quick peek, and at the very second that my eye got a view of the inside, which was pitch black, boom, muzzle flash.
Oof.
And I raised my weapon to return fire. And something told me don't do it. So I just bailed out of the apartment. Radio, shots fired, officers need help. And then I hear a woman screaming from inside the apartment. Oh my God, he's dead. And we challenge us, come out with your hands up. This naked woman comes running out holding some clothes in front of her. She's hysterical. She's beaten. Grab her, throw her behind cover, and she's absolutely hysterical. And she's going, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. This woman had been in a 7-Eleven earlier in the day. This guy went in and kidnapped her at gunpoint. Stranger kidnapping. Took her to the apartment, raped her, and tortured her all day long.
Oh.
And at one point gave her the gun and said, shoot me. And she goes, I can't. He says, if you don't, I'm going to kill you. So she pulled the trigger and it was unloaded. And then he beat her and raped her some more.
Oh my gosh.
And when I knocked on the door, he moved. He had a television console on like a dolly. And he grabbed her by the head. He had her in a headlock and was pointing his gun at the door, waiting for me to come in so he could shoot me.
Yeah.
And when I didn't come in, he blew his brains out. And if I had returned fire, I probably would have hit her.
Yeah.
Right? So this is, just like another officer involved shooting. I'm literally just back to work. And like I said, it's 9:00 on a Saturday night. And while we're waiting for homicide and all the crime scene folks, the apartment manager is standing there with us. And he turns to me and he says, man, I don't know what it is about that apartment. I think it's haunted or something. And I looked at him, I go, what are you talking about? He says, yeah. He says, 3 months ago, the cops killed the guy that lived in there.
We know who that was.
We sure do. 9:00 on a Saturday night. That guy was coming back for a second bite.
Wow. That is nuts.
Is that bizarre enough for you?
That is nuts. You definitely have an angel on your shoulder.
Big time. Major. I have a major angel on my shoulder. Been with me my entire career. That's only one of the encounters that I survived.
That is insane. Oh my! And that is that crime too that guy committed is like that is the number one crime that strikes fear into the public. A random act of violence, a random
kidnapping. Yeah.
That is what we all fear. Absolutely.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Damn that! And how evil to give her the gun unloaded, and then
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, that poor woman. I hope she got the help she needs and she's in a good place at this point. Yeah,
me too.
Damn. So switching gears a little bit, if you have one, do you have a heartwarming a call that you went on, or?
I do. I absolutely do. In fact, I'll tell you the story, and another life-changing moment, but for a different reason. Although violence is part of it as well. So I was a sergeant. And I was on patrol. I love being a sergeant. My favorite job. I was a sergeant for 14 years. And I was on patrol one afternoon, right off the strip, Las Vegas Strip. And dusk, about 6:00 or so. And I come upon a car that is up on the sidewalk, and people are running around screaming. And I don't know what's going on, so I radio for backup, and I jump out of the car, and it's bedlam. People are screaming and carrying on. There's bullet holes in the car. And then somebody screams, the baby's been shot. and I look down. There's a 1-month-old baby in an infant seat that's been shot in the face.
Oh.
What had happened was mom and dad, innocent people from El Salvador, taking their kid, they're going to the market. Babies in the infancy, and 3 gangbangers alongside them in a gang. No reason.
Oh, brother, you're all jumbled again. Are you there?
Come back.
There, I think you're back now.
Okay. Can you?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
I got the audio. I got the audio now. Yeah.
Okay. So there's this little baby who's been shot in the face, and I radioed for the ambulance. But I knew that if I waited for that ambulance, that baby was going to die because she wasn't breathing. So the first unit that got there, and you know the protocols. Protocol is you wait for the ambulance. But I knew that if I waited, she was going to die. So I scooped her up. And what happened was when the bullet hit her face, her head's the size of a softball.
Sure.
So all this tissue and stuff went down and choked her. So I was able to clear her airway and give her mouth to mouth and bring her back.
Wow.
And literally, I was there within minutes of it happening, so no brain damage. Get to the hospital, I hand her off like a football to the trauma team. They work their magic, and she not only lives but no brain damage, and she's now my goddaughter.
No way.
Yeah. In fact, she was at my house for Thanksgiving.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Damn.
That night changed my life too. That night was life changing, and I'll tell you how life changing it was. So that night, I went home, and I yanked out a bottle of scotch, a little Johnny Walker, and started drinking, and said, I need to write this story down. I just felt like I needed to write it. And so I got my yellow pad out and my pen and wrote the story. It's called Her Name is Jackie. And I didn't have anything to do with it. I just felt like I needed to write it. So I did. Put it away, put it in a drawer, and it sat there for 3 years. And then the World Trade Center was attacked. And deadliest day in law enforcement history, 72 officers dead. And I was so frustrated at not being able to do anything to help. I thought about that story that was in that drawer. And just like your podcast, I know that every cop has a story like that. And I said, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to ask cops to write that story. Whatever it was that touched them. I'm going to put it in a book and I'm going to donate all the royalties to the officers' families who got killed. And that is that book right there, if you can see it. True Blue. Police stories by those who have lived them.
Wow. Sounds amazing.
And that began my writing career. The editor-in-chief at St. Martin's Press liked my story and my style so much, he says, I want you to write your own book. And that was called A Cop's Life, which is now morphed into my podcast, A Cop's Life.
That's awesome, man. How it all links together is incredible.
How it all links together, exactly. And you see, that's why I believe that policing is such an incredible career, because you can leave a legacy as a cop like you can't anywhere else. And that's why I view policing as not just a career, but it is a calling. You literally can influence lives. You can save lives. You can save families. You can save heartache. It is such an incredible career.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have changed it for the world.
Incredible stories, brother. My goodness. Nuts. And that was, 34 years total in law enforcement. Is that right?
Yeah, 34 total. Yeah.
That's a long time, man. I'm glad you got a career after the career.
Well, now, my career now is probably the most important thing, but that was not without heartache too. What ended my police career was having a stroke in my car.
Oh, wow. I didn't
And,
know that.
yep. And it was the most frightening moment of my life. I was a lieutenant now. I spent my entire lieutenant's career graveyard shifts because graveyard in Vegas is where it's happening.
I
And
bet.
the lieutenant's rank is the last street rank. So you can actually go out and do some policing. And although most of my lieutenant compatriots didn't go out much, but
Right.
I still had the taste for it. So I was on the street a lot. And on this particular night, I would always take a patrol officer with me when I was the watch commander, so I could get to know my people and know what's really you always know what's going on in a police department if you spend 8 hours in a police car with somebody,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
You can only fake so much, right? So
Yep.
whenever I was watch commander, I would take a cop with me, and I'd get to because I had hundreds of people working for me. So I had this young man with me. We're driving down Las Vegas Boulevard, 2:30 in the morning, and I literally started feeling my brain slowing down. And I'm talking to him like I'm talking to you, and I found myself talking slower, and I knew exactly what was happening. I knew I knew I was having a stroke.
Whoa.
And I stopped the police car, and I said, "Get me medical. I'm having a stroke." This poor kid looks at me like, "Is he messing with me?"
Yeah.
And I got out of the car to go around to the passenger side in case he needed to get me to the hospital. I started speaking gibberish. And I knew I was speaking gibberish, but I couldn't control it.
Oh, it's scary, man.
And then I lost the ability to speak and move altogether and crumple to the pavement and lay there helpless
Whoa.
as tourists are walking by me and taking my picture.
Oh, my gosh.
And now here's the interesting part. I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of living like that.
Yeah.
And I was praying to die. But once again, that same angel that's been on my shoulder my entire career was with me again. And the clot went through my brain, did the damage that it did, but didn't kill me, and could have done a lot more damage. But it ended my police career.
Yeah.
And but what happened next was what was shocking, and that was my own department turned its back on me. So we're not paying your medical bills, and we're not giving you your benefits.
Really?
I said, what are you talking about? You have to. It's the law. Yeah, we'll make us. And that began more than a year long legal battle with my own department. And I went to go see the sheriff who I served with for 24 years. And I was friendly with. I said, "How do you treat me like this? I almost gave my life on more than one occasion for this city, for this department." And he looked me right in the eye and he said, "Randy, don't take this personally. It's just business."
Oh, my gosh.
And I came to find out he was right. That's all it was. It was just business. You see, they knew they had to pay. They knew they had to pay my bills. They knew they had to give me my benefits. But they also knew it would take well over a year. And they were betting on the fact that I would die in the meantime. That's what their hope was.
That's diabolical, brother. That is disgusting.
It is diabolical. But here's the reality. Now, then what happened was what changed the trajectory of my life. Now, I was the most featured officer on the TV show Cops. I've been in the movies. I've written books. I was a police trainer for decades. I still am. So I was very visible in the law enforcement community. And suddenly cops started reaching out to me. "Randy, I know you don't know me, but I was a cop and I was shot and my department threw me away. Randy, I was paralyzed in a car accident when my patrol car was hit. My department, I don't even get a payment from my department." From all over the country. All of these devastating stories, all ending with the same thing. I feel
all too
forgotten,
common.
I feel alone, I feel abandoned. And I thought, wait a minute, there's got to be a national resource for these men and women. We have Concerns of Police Survivors if you die.
Yeah.
Great organization. But there was nothing for if you are severely injured or disabled? Nothing. Well, there sure as hell is now.
Yeah.
We are the Wounded Blue, and we are the National Assistance and Support Organization for injured and disabled officers, and we've helped more than 14,000 cops in the last 5 years.
That's amazing, man. I have it up on the screen right now, your website.
Yeah, it's literally, I mean, it's life-changing. I just literally, last week, I got back from Ferguson, Nevada, or Missouri, where the Michael Brown killing took place, right?
Yep.
The great lie of hands up, don't shoot.
Yeah, that poor cop. Jeez.
So, yeah, exactly. So, in August, on the anniversary of his death, the usual morons came out to play.
Yep.
And the police came out, of course, and one of their Ferguson officers, Travis Brown, was tackled to the ground. He hit his head and suffered a terrible brain injury. Been in a coma for months. Just recently came out of the coma, but he has a long, hard road to some semblance of normalcy, and has now been put into a rehab in Atlanta. He has 2 young children. His mom takes care of the children. Well, I went down to Ferguson for Christmas and presented that family with a check for $5,000. But that $5,000 is only for December, because we're giving them $5,000 a month for the next year.
That's beautiful, man. Amazing.
Life-changing.
And that's the woundedblue.org for anybody to go to.
Thewoundedblue.org. Yeah, we made Christmas happen for a whole bunch of law enforcement families who are in fiscal crisis because of their injuries. And we gave families a lot of money, thousands and thousands of dollars, to help put smiles on the faces of their children this Christmas.
That's amazing, man. Isn't it so sad that when people come on the podcast, if they were injured, it's shocking to hear when their department takes care of them. It's like, oh wow, they did.
I know. It's the exception rather than the rule.
It's gross.
It's I could tell you, I actually have a documentary film. If you go to Amazon.com and just put The Wounded Blue, we have a full-length documentary film. It'll blow your mind. It will blow your mind. You'll watch it and you'll go, how is that possible? What do you mean a police officer could get shot in the head and be abandoned?
Everybody thinks we're taken care of. They all do. They're like, they're good.
Right. And actually, Stephen, that's one of the issues I have raising money. People don't believe me. They say, wait a minute. What are you talking about? What do you mean you can get shot and be thrown away? Yeah. That's actually one of the major issues I have in raising money. People can't believe it.
Yeah, I'm sure I'm sure a lot of people out there, a lot of good American citizens donate to whatever police associations, send them a mailer, and they probably figure these guys are good. This is all going to the right place, getting into the right hands, Yeah.
And there's a lot of scammers out there. There's a lot of fake charities. That's one of the things we deal with too. Especially, there's a lot of fake police charities.
Yeah. Yep, there sure are. I get called for them on my phone. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, then you started asking, and they hang up on you.
Yeah, you tell them you're a cop, and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, thank goodness you started that. Obviously, I'll put a link in the show notes for it so everybody can get to it and check it out. And if you're a family in need or you need the services, is just going to the website and shooting a message the best thing to do?
Yep. There's a contact form. Contact us. We are literally a resource for every cop in America. My entire team is made up of cops, and everybody's been shot, stabbed, beaten, run over, screwed up, screwed over, and yet they continue to serve. My peer team are amazing men and women. I have people who have been blinded, people who are in wheelchairs, people who have been paralyzed, and yet they continue to serve. They serve by being a trained, certified peer team officer. We just trained another 17 people here in Vegas last week from all over the country because they want to give back. And sometimes all we need is somebody that cares to listen to us.
Yeah.
And we have lots of resources. We get people into treatment all the time. We're not only a resource for every cop in America, but every police agency in America too. We've deployed people all over the country when a critical incident happens and their peer team can't handle it. They're too close to it. I had people at the Capitol after the January 6th insanity for quite a while, dealing with some of those issues. So we're literally a resource for every cop in America, every police agency in America. If you're an officer and you're struggling, either because of your physical injury or because PTS, we all know PTS is as real as a bullet.
Yeah.
And even the departments that try to do it right and they have accessible mental health, a lot of cops don't trust their own departments. And that's why we're a resource, because we're independent. We owe nobody except the person that we're helping.
That's awesome.
Confidential. Yeah. So you can reach out to us either on our website, Facebook, The Wounded Blue. I urge you to get on there and like it. Follow us. We have a talk line, 833-TWB Talk. It's on our website. So there's a lot of ways to contact us. And literally, we exist for one reason and one reason alone, and that's to help injured and disabled officers.
I love it, Randy. I will absolutely put the links to all that stuff in the show notes so people can get to it easily. The last question I have for you is one of the more popular ones. There's a lot of would-be coppers or people in backgrounds or they're thinking about it, and they actually hear you guys tell your stories and decide to actually do it. So the question is, advice to new police officers getting into the profession now.
Be proud of yourself. Be proud of your life. Be proud of the decision you made to become a cop. Be proud of your brothers and sisters standing beside you. There is no more noble profession than that of being an American peace officer. And to have the pride in yourself, knowing that you are, in fact, a warrior for the good, is something to be embraced. And understand that you're a special person.
I love it. Words of wisdom. Thank you for that, sir. And finally, I want to point people to Cops Life, the podcast, because it sounds like, I can only put up 4 episodes a month. It sounds like they can get even more of what I'm doing over at your place. Yeah,
it's similar. It's a very personal viewpoints from police officers who've experienced a lot of different things, and the exposure of actually, the heart behind the badge, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. It's not just running and gunning. It's how this job has affected you. And I mean, I've got some real freaking heroes. I got one of the officers is the most shot cop in America, shot 15 times and still survived it.
Damn.
He gives back to this day. Yeah, there's some amazing stories. And if you're a police officer and you have lived that story, contact me, Randy at thewoundedblue.org, Randy at thewoundedblue.org. And if you are an officer who's struggling, you can contact me directly, Randy at thewoundedblue.org, and I'll set you up with one of our peer team members. And then again, if you want to support us, go to the website, hit that donate button, or if you're a corporate sponsor and you want to get involved with us, contact me directly, Randy at thewoundedblue.org.
Awesome. I love it. Yeah, everybody go over there and donate because we need to support our country's coppers. We already have a hiring crisis on our hands, and the last thing we want is these men and women to feel like they're not being supported in their time of need, which is, to me, absolutely ridiculous. So thank God the Wounded Blue is out there. Randy, it was an absolute honor to have you on the show, sir. Thank you for coming by. I got to do the outro. Can you hang on for just 2 or 3 minutes when I do that?
Sure. Yep.
All right, sir. Thank you. The great Randy Sutton, ladies and gentlemen. That guy's got a lot going on. He's doing a lot of good for coppers all around the country, and he's getting on the RNC stage and talking. It's unbelievable. Life after law enforcement, big time with this guy. Honored to have him on. This is a time in the show when I thank the Patreon sponsors. Who I'm talking about is Sherry Finch, Lisa Gano, John and Aaron Kate, the great Dylan Mosher, John Jordan, Nick Adams, the great Michael Roach of Roach Machines AI. Check him out. The great George Cariotis, everybody. Paul Maloney, the great Jason Labrie, Bentley Barnett, Zachary Pleat, Sheriff Ronald Long, thank you, sir. The great Adam McMahon, the great Clark Luckhuff, Nancy Hammond, everybody, Brad Thompson, the great Kyle Roberts, everybody, Elliot Sykes, Dave Ellman, Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother, stay safe out there, the great Raymond Arsenal, Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys, hope you're having fun in Wyoming, Dan Carlson from Burley Boards, check out his woodworking on Instagram, it's incredible, Scott Young, the great Thomas Connell coming in at lieutenant level. Thank you, sir. The great Dennis Carrasquillo. George Tessier, everybody. Love you, buddy. See ya at church. Iceman from Motor Cop Chronicles. The great Greg Gadboy. Ben Peters, ladies and gentlemen. The great Tammy Walsh. Holding it down at dispatch. Thank you, Tammy. Sean Clifford, everybody. Sasha McNabb. Jason Lau. The great Lauren Stimson. Jake Pinedo. John Shoemaker. The great James Rose, everybody. Seth Wright. Tony Fahey, ladies and gentlemen. The great William James Long, the Deputy William James Long, you thank very much. Andy, the great and powerful Andy Biggs, Lieutenant level. Thank you, sir. Adam Mihal, the great Gary Steiner, and the handsome Lane Campbell. Guys, thank you so much for your continued support. I truly appreciate that. You keep the lights on, you keep the boat afloat. So thank you. If you want to support the show, you really love it, you've binged all the episodes, and you think, how can I give Steve some of my money? You can do that at Patreon, and I appreciate the link is in the show notes. And the links to all Randy's things will be in there, to his podcast, of course, to thewoundedblue.org, so you can go and support them. I love you guys, and I will see you next week.